There we go. Hey, there we go. All right, back online here. Now, can you hear me okay? Just let me know in the chat uh, if you can hear me. All right. Give me a thumbs up. Okay, I think we're good. Except my lighting is horrible because it's not daylight. Uh, so I've got a dome light. I'm going to see if I can add another light in here as well. Like I said, I am on the road, and it is great to be able to have technology to be able to join together with you. And how about that? Well, that's bright. Okay. All right, Tammy. Now, can you see me okay? I know it's kind of awkward, but and you can hear me. So that's wonderful. I had to make a run a long ways from Amarillo today, and I just didn't make it back in time. And so I just came prepared to take everything with me so that I could be with you tonight. And it's taken me a little bit of time to um, connect, because you know how passwords are and all of that when things aren't normal. But okay, it's kind of weird. I just feel like I'm talking to myself because I'm using my earbuds. Wish I had some feedback, that would be good. But all right, it's kind of weird. I'm at a rest area here on I-27, just north of Lubbock, and good thing we have some good data connection here. So we'll just go from there. So I see several other people joining me right now, so it's good to see you guys online as well. We've been studying out the Book of Jubilees, and well, I say when studying out, that's a misnomer. We are kind of studying it, but really more, we're just going on the adventure of Jubilees. Because remember how we started out? Just anybody that's joining us new is like, what's this about? What's Walking the Spirit of Truth? It just popped up on my feed. Yeah, Jubilees is this book that's been left out of the 66 book canon for some reason, kind of like Enoch was pulled out and left out. So it came down to 66 books. But this, as it starts out, this is information, a download that Moses got on the mountain, Mount Sinai, and we see that what it does is it kind of helps us fill in the gaps of the biblical narrative. Not that it's trying to substitute the narrative, but nothing. I don't think we've ever seen anything so far that conflicts with the narrative or basic biblical doctrine in terms of how we understand it. So I think what it does is it affirms and confirms the things that we know already. But I like that. I like that perspective because it's bringing it to a different way of looking at the scripture. It fills in the gaps, and ultimately, a lot of the stuff that we've just learned over the years has been because it was taught from a pulpit, or we've kind of scratched pieces together in the Brit Hadashah, and yet books like Enoch and Fourth Esdras and Tobit and here in the Book of Jubilees, it is actually gives us the foundation and the origin of many of the things that we've even believed. So, all right, and who am I? My name's John Craig. I am and my wife together pastor Life of Worship Ministries here in Amarillo, Texas, and we do meet together on Shabbat at noon Central Time, and at the Life of Worship Ministries YouTube channel. So come over and join us on Shabbat for a good a midrash that we have with our congregation and with those that are online with us, and that runs from about noon Central to about 2. And then we take an hour break, come back with our encounter service where we have a time of praise, worship, ministry, and a message. And the message split off in a second stream. It's still one service, but we do that for a number of different reasons. But we'd love for you to join us. And then also, just want to let you know, in terms of being partners with us, we would love for you to partner with us. And one of the ways you can do that is you can go to www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org. Find out who we are, what we're about, be a prayer partner with us. And then also, we are really looking for some financial partners. I had to pay some bills today and had to contribute to an account in order to get one of our bills taken care of. So we certainly could appreciate anybody that can join us and financially with either a love gift, one-time love gift, an offering, or even send your tithe to Life of Worship Ministries, and we will certainly be good stewards of it. All right, so the Book of Jubilees. I think where we left off last week was we finished off chapter 10 of Jubilees, and I'm using the Sefer version of the Bible. You can see right there, and because it has these other books in it, and so this is the version that I'm using, and then it also just where we had left off, going in chapter 10, we kind of blew through those last few verses to finish off the chapter. But there is something that I don't want to miss out on, and this has to do with the curse. And it's the curse that was given to Ham. And in verse 30, where it says, "And Ham, his father, and Cush, and Mitzrayim, his brother, said unto him, You have settled in a land which is not yours, and which did not fall to us by lot. Do not do so. For if you do, you and your sons will fall in the land and be accursed through sedition. For by sedition you have settled, and by sedition will your children fall, and you shall be rooted out forever. Dwell not in the dwelling of Shem, for to Shem and to his sons did it come by their lot. Cursed are you, and cursed shall you be beyond all the sons of Noah. And by the curse by which we bound ourselves by an oath in the presence of the holy judge and in the presence of Noah, our father." Now, isn't that interesting? Because if you think about history today, and you look at, okay, what's how does that curse continue to transpire over all these millennia, and thousands of years have gone on since that point in time, and you look at anybody that tried to settle in the land of Shem that shouldn't be there. For example, that part of the land of Shem, which is where modern day Israel is, it also would be where Jordan is, and Syria and Lebanon. All of that would be part of the land of Shem. And look what's happened. Look at all of the wars that have transpired in that land. Why? Because people tried to settle there, and that it didn't belong to them. I mean, think about how the Greeks came in. Well, no, you can go beyond that. Go look at the time of Ham, and then look at the giants, and look at all the people that were driven out of the land when Israel came back from Egypt, and because the land did not belong to them. And then you can go back, you can fast forward in history, and you can look at the Babylonians, and you can look at the Greeks, and then you can look at the Egyptians, and you can look at the Romans, and you can look at a number of different people that have fought over the land and had that land for a period of time, but there was always war there. One people group was driven out by another people. We said, well, what about the Hebrew people, the Israelites? Yeah, they were driven out because they failed to honor the Shabbats. Remember that? The Shemitah years and the Yovel years, and they never let the land rest, and they served other gods that were in the land, and so the land vomited them out. But the others are just intruders if they were not from the lineage of Shem. So this is one of the things that we can gather from the Book of Jubilees. Cursed are you, verse 32, chapter 10, and cursed shall you be beyond all the sons of Noah by the curse by which we have bound ourselves by an oath in the presence of the holy judge. Remember in James 4:12, who's the holy judge? It's Yeshua. Okay, so if Yeshua is judge and lawgiver, according to James 4:12, then who is the holy judge that set this up? I think it's pretty obvious who it is. And in the presence of Noah our father, but he did not hearken unto them, and dwelt in the land of Lebanon from Hamath to the entering of Mitzrayim. I mean, look at what's going on today. Who's living in Gaza? Many people would say, well, are they Arabs? I don't know if they really fit the bill for Arabs. Maybe, yeah, you could probably call them Arabs, or you could call them technically Jordanian. Uh, but who are the people that are living in Gaza? And then look at all of the battles and the strife and everything that's come against those people. And you say, well, that's just Israel. That's just the Jews beating up on the poor Palestinians. I mean, they were the original invaders of the lands, and back around 1946, 47, 48, even a little bit before, when they started to import all these people and they started moving in and settling the area. And it's like, well, no, in that time before Israel got there, they were just basically Bedouins, and but they were stirred up always to be at war against Israel. So here we have, I mean, that's all we've ever seen is battling against Israel. We've seen the homicide bombers, and we've seen the various factions of rebellions and stuff that rise up against Israel, and even all the way to the point of October 7th, and then we have great devastation going on in Gaza, and you think, my goodness, I mean, what type of people is this that is so devastated? And, well, could it be because they shouldn't be dwelling there? And so, well, what choice did they have? They were like in an open air prison. Well, maybe you could call it that. They're not allowed. People in the other countries around the world don't want them. And then look what's happened when they've exported the people from Gaza, and what we call the Palestinians, and wherever they go, they cause problems because it's all part of the curse. And yeah, there are Christians that live down there, and but they're not the problem. It's these others that come in who have bowed their knee to a foreign god, and wherever they go, they cause mayhem, they cause havoc, they cause sedition, they cause rebellion, they cause riots, they cause harm, bodily harm to people, and they don't care. That's the people. And why? Because they get that from their father Ham, who committed sedition, and it's by sedition will your children fall, and you shall be rooted out forever. And so wherever they go, they cause problems because it's sedition that's in their heart, because they fail to settle in the right place. That's my opinion, and I think it comes right out of the Book of Jubilees. Tell me what do you think? Tell me what you think in the chat. Is there a connection? Is there a connection to this curse? I think there is, because there's only one family that belongs there in that area, and that is of the descendants of Shem, specifically to the descendants of Abraham, who was brought out of the area of Mesopotamia and brought to this land, by which his sons and grandsons inherited, and of course the lineage that comes from there. That's who belongs there. But you also have to look at it as Paul Shaul talks about in the book of Romans. It also speaks about those who are grafted in. I think he also talks about it in Ephesians. When we're grafted in, then we receive the same inheritance. It's like, well, that's a physical inheritance. So we get a spiritual inheritance, and the answer is yes, we get both. Let's go on a little bit further. And for this reason, well, verse 33, but he did not hearken unto them, and dwelt in the land of Lebanon from Hamath to the entering of the Mitzrayim, he and his sons, until this day. And for this reason, that land is named Canaan. And Japheth and his sons went towards the sea and dwelt in the land of their portion. And Madai saw the land of the sea, and it did not please him. And he begged a portion from Elam and Ashur and Arphaxad, his woman's brother. And he dwelt in the land of Madai near to his woman's brother until this day. And he called his dwelling place and the dwelling place of his sons Madai, after the name of their father Madai. And last week we pulled up a map. It was very interesting. It was before the continent split up. But I thought was also interesting is that Shem's portion was not the area of the cold, that was Japheth, and not the area of the heat, which was Ham, but the area that was neither hot nor cold. And when the continents together, it extended. It was interesting how that map went. It extended across, if I remember right, like across parts of North Africa into Europe, and then what we call North America, and which included the United States and Canada. I just think that's very interesting. Being that, I live here in North America, and how the settlers, when they came across from the time of the Jamestown to the time of Plymouth Rock and all the other settlers that came in to the United States. Isn't it interesting that where did they come from? They if you follow the migration patterns, it's all descendants of Shem, and more specifically, descendants of Israel. That is Jacob. So let's move to chapter 11, verse 1. And in the 35th Jubilee, of course, everything is measured by Jubilees on this biblical calendar. And that's why this book's called Jubilees, because time is measured by the Jubilees every 50 years. And in the 35th Jubilee, in the third week, in the first year thereof, so the third, when it says the third week, it's speaking of 3 weeks of 7. So so in other words, 21 years. So the 35th Jubilees, 21 years into that, and in the first year. So that gives us an idea of the time period. So thereof, Reu took to himself a woman, and her name was Orah, the daughter of remember Ur of the Chaldees, the son of Chesed, and she bore him a son, and his name Sero, in the 7th year of this week in this Jubilee. And the sons of Noah began to war on each other, to take captive and to slay each other, and to shed the blood of men on earth, and to eat blood, and to build strong cities and walls and towers. And individuals began to exalt themselves above the nation, and to found the beginnings of kingdoms, and to go to war, people against people, and nation against nation, and city against city, and all began to do evil and to acquire arms and to teach their sons war. And they began to capture cities and to sell male and female slaves. I mean, just think, if you think about it, everybody's, even today, everybody's related to Noah, right? Isn't that correct? Everybody's related to Noah. So if but being closer to the time of the flood, it's like these are like family feuds. These are like the cousins fighting the cousins. At least by this time they're probably looking at 4th, 5th, 6th generations down. So the cousins are getting further and further apart. But isn't it also interesting how this relates to Yeshua when he talks about that at the time of the end, before his return, there would be kingdom against kingdom, these nations against nations, ethnos against ethnos, these battles that would be going on, and yet here in the book of Jubilees, it's talking about it. So we have like this repeat of history. I think that's what it sounds like. I think it's even though this is the beginning of nation against nation and city against city, and they all began to do evil and to acquire arms and to teach their sons for war and to capture others and to sell male and female slaves. That it just seems like, isn't that what's happening today? Slavery's going on. I mean, one of the things that it's been in the news is just talking about human trafficking, whether it's for labor or whether it's for sex or for whatever reasons, because a lot of it has to do with the sex trafficking, but a lot of it's labor trafficking. That what they've done is they've scooped up all these people, especially women and children, from the border, and they stick them in vans. They transport them across country, and they put them into basically sweatshops. They got to work in particular businesses, and honestly, never see the light of day. Working long, long hours, slave labor in the United States. But I'm going to tell you, if it's here in the United States, yeah, I'm telling you, it's happening everywhere. And they use them up until they can't produce anymore, and then they dispose of them. And uh, that's that's what slavery is. It says, and Ur, the son of Kesed, built the city of Ara of the Kasdim. So, and called its name after his own name and the name of his father. And they made for themselves molten images. No. And they worshiped the idol, the molten image. No. Which they made for themselves. Remember how we read that? We read that like a couple weeks ago. How the sons of Noah, after Noah died, that they would betray what their promises to their father, and that they would consume blood and they would worship idols. And that's exactly here it is. And they began to make graven images and unclean simulacra. I gotta look that up. All right. And malignant ruachot. And malignant, have you ever heard of an evil spirit called a malignant ruachot? Ruachot meaning spirits. They worshipped malignant ruachot spirits. And spirits are the disembodied spirits of the giants, because they have no place to go. So if they roam the earth till they inhabit a body. So they worship those spirits, assisted and seduced them into committing transgression and uncleanness. Yeah. So those unclean spirits, those malignant ruachot, they seduce them into committing transgressions and uncleanness. And the prince Mastema exerted himself to do all this, and he sent forth other ruachot, those which were put under his hand, to do all manner of wrong and sin and all manner of transgression, to corrupt and destroy and to shed blood upon the earth. And for this reason he called the name of Soro Suruk, for everyone turned to do all manner of sin and transgression. Oh, man, that's horrible. So who's Mastema? Well, it appears that Mastema is like one of the princes of the powers of the air and rulers of this dark world. Fits in there, and who's in charge of these evil spirits and telling them what to do. And in other words, then telling the spirits to go get men to enter into all manner of transgression, to corrupt and destroy, and to shed blood upon the earth. Kind of like what was going on when the giants turned on each other and created a big slaughter, where the giants died. I wish I was able to do this. Maybe I can bring it next week. And where we were looking at my wife and I, we were looking at some YouTube videos, and about these different mountains that are in different places of the world, and because of satellite imagery, that when you look at these mountains, they actually look like these large giants that died on the ground, and you can see the outline of the body with arms, legs, heads, and you say, "Well, are you sure that's just not a manipulation of and graphics, and that, or when you look at it, is it in fact giants that fell, and they their bodies were petrified? I mean, could that be it? That some of these mountains are actually petrified bodies. Okay, so in Norway, where I grew up, I mean, it was 8.5 years in Norway. They have mythology. Norwegian mythology has to do with trolls. In fact, there's a couple movies that are on Netflix. I think it's on Netflix, called Trolls, and then there's a Trolls 2 out. And the mythology is that these trolls, which are giants, very ugly looking giants, is that if they get out in the sunlight, then their body begins to harden, and they become as stone, and they die, and that's how the mountains were formed in Norway. So I mean, that's the mythology. Well, that's basically kind of what this movie is talking about. Is And so a lot of these trolls went into hiding because of the Christianizing of the nation, and so I mean, this kind of part of the plot and the storyline. And one of the things that the trolls didn't like was the sound of church bells. The frequency of the church bells drove the trolls out, further out into the wilderness. And then, but eventually, the armies of the Christians came, and they they killed the trolls. And so we have all these mountains in Norway that are the bodies of the rain. Okay, so that's the remains of the trolls, but get this. Okay, what is very interesting is, if when you look at Himalayan salt, when they're carving it out of the mountains, and some of the Himalayan salt findings, when you compare them to like cuts of meat or marbleized meat, the veins of the pink and the white of the Himalayan salt directly look uh, like cuts of steak. It does. It's really weird when you start to look at it. It's like, so in other words, is Himalayan salt kind of like the veins, the blood vessels of that were petrified of the giants? I don't. Where did they find them? They find them in the mountains. I don't know. It's speculation, but I'm going to tell you what, because the similarities are uncanny. Sandy and I have stopped. Yeah, it is creepy. Sandy and I have stopped eating Himalayan mountain salt. Yeah, we're not eating that salt anymore, because if it is in fact uh, related to the giants, we certainly don't want giant DNA inside of it. I mean, no wonder that those minerals are so rich in multiple different trace minerals that are essential to life. It would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it? I know it's kind of weird and it's kind of out there, but do your own research. Just do your own research. Maybe next week we can bring some of those pictures and images in when I'm back at my desk. We have switched completely to Celtic sea salt um, because of that very reason. So, all right, it's a little off track, but nevertheless, it's worth thinking about, because going back to the text here, when the giants died and their spirit is no longer in their body, where do they go? Because there's not a place in the heavenly realm for them to go. Uh, they're just they're just left to roam the earth until the final judgment. So they are malignant ruachot. They are evil spirits, and we've gone over that ad nauseam. Uh, uh, not only here in the book of Jubilees, but also in the book of Enoch. All right, verse 7 of chapter 11. And he grew up, talking about this son we were talking about earlier, Sarah. and dwelt in Ur of the Kasdim, or we would say maybe the Chaldees, near to the father of his woman's mother. And he worshipped idols, and he worshipped idols. Ugh. And he took to himself a woman, and in the 36th Jubilee, in the 5th week, in the first year thereof, and her name was Milcah, and the daughter of Kaber, the daughter of his father's brother. Hmm. So he took his cousin, and he bore him Nachor. Huh, important to know. And we might call him Nahor, or and which would be, I believe, Abraham's father, right? Yeah, I think so. In the first year of this week, and he, because we're following along the lineage of Abraham right now. In the first year of his week, and he grew and he dwelt in the Ur of the Kasdim, and his father taught him the researches of the Kasdim to divine and augur according to the signs of heaven. In the 37th Jubilee, in the 6th week, in the first year thereof, he took himself a woman, and her name was um, Lyaska, the daughter of Nistag of the Kasdim, and she bore him Terah. Okay, that would be Abraham's father. Nahor would be his grandfather. In the 7th year of this week. And the prince, Mastema, okay, sent ravens and birds to devour the seed which was sown in the land in order to destroy the land and rob the children of men of their laborers. See, this is an evil. You know that is a, a fallen angel. It's horrible. Uh, before they could plow in the seed. Now, before they could plow in the seed. So how did they used to plow? How did they used to plant seeds? Like today, what we do is we plow the land, and then we use a seed drill and to plant the seeds after the ground's been plowed. But back then, what they would do is they would cast their seed upon the soil, and then they would come back with a plow, and which would turn the soil. And so that's how the seed would be planted, and then they would grow their crops. And so he sent the birds to eat the seed before the soil could be turned. And verse 12, and for this reason he called his name Terach, because the ravens and the birds reduced them to destitution and devoured their seed. So I don't have the ability. Can I do my 2-letter lookup? Maybe I can do my 2-letter lookup and look up Terach. Let's just take it. Let's look it up. Let's see what we have. All right. Let's just do this real quickly. Hopefully it's not going to mess up the stream too much. I'm going to go, no, get that out of the screen. Can't pull that. All right, 2-letter lookup. It's right here. And, okay, now let's look up Terra, Tav, and Aresh. Terra. Strong's 8646 of uncertain derivation. Terah. Station, the father of Abraham. Terah means delay. A station of Israel in the wilderness. Terah. Okay, so it means delay. So it delayed their ability to grow the seed. Isn't that interesting? Let's see what the Hebrew Chaldee lexicon to the Old Testament says. Zoom in on that. And Terah. Oh, that's not it. All right, we'll have to look at that more later on because that didn't take me to where I wanted to go. All right, so okay, so moving right along. So and the years began to be barren owing to the birds. Maybe that's why they came up with the idea of scarecrows, right? We have a screenshot of a giant on top of that. No, no. So, see that? Interesting. Huh. Okay. All right. So let's go on here. Verse 13. And it was only with great effort that they could save. Wow. And the years began to be barren, owing to the birds, and they devoured all the fruit of the trees from the trees. It was only with great effort that they could save a little of the fruit of the earth in their days. And in the 39th year, and in the second week, in the first year, Terach took to himself a woman, and her name was Edna. Edna seems to be a family name, right? Okay, and the daughter of Avram was Edna, the daughter of Avram, the daughter of his father's sister. And in the 7th year of this week, she bore him a son, and he called his name Avram by the name of the father of his mother, for he had died before his daughter had conceived a son. And the child began to understand the errors of the child. So Avram began to understand the errors of the earth, and all went astray after graven images and after uncleanness. And his father taught him writing. And he was 2 weeks of years old, so that'd be like 14. And he separated himself from his father that he might not worship idols with him. And he began to pray to the creator of all things that he might save him from the errors of the children of men. And this is the portion should not fall into error, and that his portion should not fall into error after uncleanness and vileness. And the seed time came for the sowing of the seed upon the land, and they all went forth together to protect their seed against the ravens. And Avram went forth with those that went, and the child was a lad of 14 years. And a cloud of ravens came to devour the seed, and Avram ran to meet them before they settled on the ground. And he cried to them before they settled on the ground to devour the seed, and said, "Descend not, return to the place whence you came." And they proceeded to turn back, and he caused the clouds of ravens to turn back, the clouds of ravens to turn back that day 70 times. And all the ravens throughout all the lands where Avram was, there settled there not so much as one. And all who were with him throughout the land saw him cry out, and all the ravens turned back, and his name became great in all the land of Kasdim. And there came to him this year, okay, and they came to him this year all those who wished to sow, and he went with them until the time of sowing ceased. And they sowed their land, and that year they brought enough grain home and eat and were satisfied. And in the first year of the 5th week, Avram taught those who made implements for oxen, the artificers in wood, and they made a vessel above the ground facing the frame of the plow in order to put the seed thereon, and the seed fell down there upon the share of the plow and was hidden in the earth, and they no longer feared the ravens. Ah, they devised an invention. Okay, so that's really cool. And it says, and after this manner, they made vessels above the ground on all the frames of the plows, and they sowed and tilled all the land according as Avram commanded them, and they no longer feared the birds. All right, so yeah, so Avram helped them build in a new invention So where they were turning the soil, it would drop the seed at the same time, and now the birds wouldn't have the seed to eat that was laying on the surface of the soil before they could turn the soil. Well, see, there you go. And plus, now, okay, now here's the other thing: ravens. Don't they seem, since it's talking like clouds of ravens, uh, and they would come in because they inherit all the seed. It's almost like they're demonic clouds, right? It doesn't it seem like that this is like an invasion of birds in order to kill, steal, and destroy? I mean, were they could possibly have been sent by the Prince Mastema in order to devour the seed, which would kill the sons of men? And since, after all, there's this rivalry of the fallen ones in Hasatan against the sons and daughters of men in order to destroy and to kill them, because there's a supreme hatred from Hasatan and his minions. And wouldn't it make sense that perhaps these malignant ruachot that we talked about over in chapter 11, verse 4, that these malignant ruachot, these malignant spirits that are always roaming to look for a body to inhabit, possibly could have been found themselves inhabiting the bodies of these ravens, working in concert against the sons of men. And by doing that, they would come in these clouds to devour the seed, and they'd eat the fruit of the trees. It would seem to me that could very well be. I mean, one of the things that we have to do when, like, we have a peach tree in our yard, and boy, it had abundance of peaches this year. But you know what we had to do to protect those peaches? We had to put bird nets around the tree so that the birds couldn't get to the fruit of the tree. But then I found out that there's another enemy to our peaches, and those are ants. Those little red, what we call piss ants. Those little tiny ants. And if they could get to a peach, they would drill a hole and they would inhabit that hole and destroy the peach. So I hate demonic. I thought they were demonic. Well, get a peach and it's already soft and it's like, no, I didn't have a chance. And but we got a good harvest out of it in spite of the ants. And if the birds get into it, they'll eat the whole fruit. And especially at the time that they're ripe, and you can't harvest them too early or they're not as sweet. But the birds will smell it, and so do the ants, and attack it. So we have to do that, and we've got a battle. It's a battle. It's a battle in the Panhandle of Texas. It's a battle to preserve the tree, so when they're flowering, that whenever there's a big freeze that comes, we wrap our tree up. So they're flowering, and then all of a sudden there's a freeze that comes, and they would kill all the buds. And if you kill all the buds or kill all the flowers, then you have no fruit. So we did that. We protected the tree during the time of the flowering, and as a result, we got a lot of fruit. How are we doing on time? All right, it's kind of weird. It's not my typical office location, but is it all good? I think it's all good. Hey, by the way, I see Bob jumping on with this. It's good to see Bob. And who else do we see there? Oh, Michael. Good to see you. Glad you jumped on with us here during your lunch break. And so grateful that you are here and that you're blessed for being with us. So, okay. And all right. Okay, good. It's good to see you guys. Right now we have Jubilees chapter 12. Let's see how far we can get into this, because basically it's like a continuous story, because it starts out in chapter 12 with what? With a connector word. And so verse 1, it says, and it came to pass in the 6th week in the 7th year thereof, that Avram said to Terah his father, saying, Father, and he said, behold, here I am, my son. So they have a conversation. Oh, Father, yeah, here I am. I'm right here. Can you see me? And he said, what help and profit have we from those idols which you do worship? Yeah. Basically, Avram is just like boiling it down. He says, what good is it that these idols that you worship, what are they doing for you? Right? And before which you do bow yourself. I mean, are they doing any good, or are they just open up doors? And there is no ruach in them, for they are dumb forms. In other words, they don't talk. And a misleading of the heart. Look at this wisdom of Abraham. Worship them not. Worship the Elohim of heaven, who causes the rain and the dew to descend on the earth and does everything upon the earth. And he has created everything by his word, and all life is from before his face. Why do you worship things which have no ruach in them? Why do you worship these things that the spirit of God's not in them? The spirit of life is not in them. They don't have a spirit. They're just dead and lifeless forms. Because life comes from our spirit. Just think about this. Life comes from our spirit. So if you get this concept, I'm going to be talking about this more and more at Life of Worship. Because how do we get healing? Healing is a manifestation from our spirit, when our spirit is connected to the spirit of the living God. Because Yah is spirit. God is spirit. And so the candle of man is spirit. The spirit of man is the candle within him. It is that's how we communicate with the Father. And when life is in the Father, it comes through him and it connects us in our spirit, and it's got to come out of our spirit, which affects our soul and our flesh. And a lot of times our flesh needs it, but something blocks it. Maybe it's our soul. Our mind and the will and emotion say, I don't really believe that, or it must not be for me. Or we try to overthink things instead of we allowing the Spirit of God to begin to speak, minister that spirit of truth that ends up being the manifestation of healing in our bodies. Healing can flow in several different ways, but from directly in your time of prayer, that healing flows when you're connected to the Most High. And just simply, your body must receive it. Your soul, man, your body, has to receive it. We'll talk more about that later on. But also, when someone prays over, it's not flowing from their physical body; it's flowing because of their connection with the Spirit of the living God, Spirit connecting to their spirit that's flowing to you, to your spirit, so that your flesh manifests healing. All right, there's more to that. We just need to look. Why do we always rely on plan B when plan A is perfect? Just saying. How are we doing? Okay. And for they are the work of men's hands, and on your shoulders do you bear them. Yeah, you're picking up your idols and you got to carry them around. And you have no help from them, but they are a great cause of shame to those who make them. And a misleading of the heart. Of course, they are misleading of the heart to those who worship them. Worship them not. And his father said unto him, I also know it, my son, but what shall I do with the people who have made me to serve before them? In other words, he's talking that he's a priest. Yeah, that's how we got to know that Abraham's father was a pagan priest. And if I tell them the truth, they will slay me. Why? Because he deceived them to search out from their idols that they have. He taught them how to do it. And it's like, well, why didn't you tell us the truth if it's all a lie? Yeah, if I tell them the truth, they will slay me. For their soul cleaves to them to worship them and honor them. Well, how many people of other religions are so clean that if you try to tell them the truth, that they just want to reject it, and then they blame us and they ostracize us and they marginalize us for saying, "Look, that's not what the Bible says." It's true. Keep silent, my son, lest they slay you. And these words he spoke to his two brothers. And they were angry with him. And he kept silent. Yeah. He's telling his brothers the same thing, and they were angry. And in the 40th Jubilee, in the second week, in the 7th year thereof, Avram took to himself a woman, and her name was Sarai, the daughter of his father, and she became his woman. And Haran, his brother, took to himself a woman in the 3rd year of the 3rd week, and she bore him a son in the 7th year of this week, and called his name Lot. And Nachor, his brother, took to himself a woman, and in the 60th year of the life of Abram, that is, in the 4th week, in the 4th year thereof, Abram arose by night, burned the house of the idols. He burned all that was in the house, and no man knew it. And they arose in the night and sought to save their Elohim from the midst of the fire. And Haran hastened to save them. But the fire flamed over them, and he was burnt in the fire. And he died in Ur of the Kasdim before Terach his father. And they buried him in Ur of the Kasdim. And Terach went forth from Ur of the Kasdim, he and his sons, to go into the land of Lebanon and into the land of Canaan, and he dwelt in the land of Haran. And Abram dwelt with Terach his father in Haran 2 weeks of years, 14 years. And in the 6th week, in the 5th year thereof, Abram sat up throughout the night on the new month of the 7th month, to observe the stars from the evening and to the morning, in order to see what would be the character of the year, and regard to the rains. And he was alone as he sat and observed. Kind of an interesting thought there. What did he do? He sought Yah to understand what this next year would bring by himself in the middle of the night, on the first day of the new month. Yeah, based on the solar calendar, because that's what Jubilees is talking about. All right, so, and a word came into his heart. A word came into his heart. And he said, all the signs of the stars and the signs of the moon and of the sun are all in the hand of Yahweh. Why do I search them out? If he desires, he causes it to rain morning and evening. And if he desires, he withholds it. And all things are in his hand. And he prayed that night and said, my Elohim, El Elyon, you alone are my Elohim. You and your dominion have I chosen. And you have created all things, and all things that are in the work of your hands. Deliver me from the hands of evil, Ruachot. Deliver me from the hands of evil spirits, who have dominion over the thoughts of men's hearts. And let them not lead me astray from you, my Elohim. And establish me and my seed forever, that we go not astray from henceforth and forevermore. What a that's a good prayer. So I am going to stop right there. We're going to start at verse 21 next week. And we'll pick it up there right in the middle of the prayer, because we're out of time. So I'm so glad that you were able to join me today. And I hope you got something out of that. It was interesting. I like this journey. Some of the backstory and some of the things that Avram overcame, and he did it by himself. He didn't have someone coming in to teach him how to do it. But by divine revelation. That means every one of us can have divine revelation, overcome, even if we find ourselves out in the middle of the wilderness and nobody's with us, and yet Yahweh can speak to us. Yeah, very good. All right. Well, I didn't know if I was going to enjoy the book of Jubilees, but it's fascinating, just as the book of Enoch was fascinating. It is fascinating, Michael. It is, absolutely. Well, all right. Until next time, this is John Craig for Walking in the Spirit of Truth, and we'll see you on Shabbat, hopefully. Shalom, shalom.
If you missed today's show or want to watch it again or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lamnetwork.tv where you will find this show and all the other live Lamb show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell someone about the Messianic Lamb Network. We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussions, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the lamnetwork.tv website. I'm Sandi Craig, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.